Hi, my name's Heidi Barrett. I am the Specialist Support Manager here at Health Assured, and this is Peace of Mind. Today, I would like to introduce Manisha. Manisha is one of our personal and professional coaches. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. An amazing chance to come and meet with you.
No, lovely to have you. So thank you very much. And we're going to be talking about parents in crisis today. First of all, I'd like to let you introduce yourself. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Of course, yeah, thank you.
What got you into coaching and what made you want to be involved with today?
Thank you very much. Yeah, love to. So, Manisha Vithani. I'm a personal and professional development coach. I sort of transitioned to coaching after having about 20 years in corporate hospitality. And I was kind of one of those leaders that actually where I sort of thrived and where I found fulfillment was when I was helping and guiding a member of my team or a member of the even the company, and they'd come to me for some support. And I kind of sort of discovered that the area that I absolutely enjoyed and the feeling I felt of that fulfillment was when I was in that space of coaching and mentoring. So, the world that I was there for, the job that I did was important, but actually being a team leader was kind of really key so I could support and navigate. I was also kind of drawn to the area that I particularly like to help with because I was one of those ideal clients that I work with.
Sure.
I was a full-time working mother, working long hours, nurturing my children and growing my children, and probably looking for balance at all times in my life. So I qualified as an accredited coach, and here I am today being able to do it on a full-time basis and help similar people like myself, whether they're in the sort of the corporate world themselves or working with individual parents just to help them get to that life of balance, that life of calm, and find where it exists in their own space.
No, that's so lovely, and it's such a amazing thing to do, to be able to help other people. And I think so much of what we see is parents, caregivers, anyone really in sort of a supporting role for children, teenagers. That's so important. The balance.
Absolutely.
I'm not a parent myself, so I mean, I'm sure we'll have a slightly different perspective on things. Not at the moment anyway. But I think that's really what I want us to talk about today and try and give people some tips.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a joy, isn't it? The role of a parent is a joy, but it comes with so many challenges. And as parents, we are absolutely determined to navigate those challenges in the best way we can. But we do go to bed and think, did I make the right choice? Did I say the right thing? And I think it is about knowing that there is a toolkit available to you where you can choose the right direction and know that you've done the best you can and still kind of fulfill in all your other priorities in life.
That's another really amazing point, to be honest, because like you say, there's so many things that as a parent you're supposed to juggle. Work, relationships, being a parent,
absolutely,
all your adult responsibilities. And I mean, a lot of, again, what I've seen from a personal perspective, like I say, I don't have my own children, but my brother, he's got a just turned 1-year-old. My partner, his sisters have kids, and there seems to be this, as a parent, I need to be a master at every single one of these aspects of life. Social media.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you have seen that in what you do.
I think what's happened is where we are now versus where we used to be is parents are, there's a sense of idealization, and that's driven by kind of those societal pressures that come along. I need to be that kind of parent. I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to have this. And that is driven through those technological kind of disruptions we have in our life now. Yes, technology is great, it's fantastic, but actually it can bring this whole wealth of new ideas into kind of what must be, what you must have, what you should have. And our children as well are kind of influenced. So once upon a time, you'd have your friends and your family and say, oh, can you help me with this? And now there's a bigger spectrum. And this whole idea of idealization is creating challenges in parents and carers who are responsible for children and all those other priorities we're talking about. They get to a point where they're questioning their decisions, they're questioning their responsibilities, and boom, before you know it, they've hit this point of overwhelm. And this point of overwhelm then creates anxiety. And that anxiety creates, potentially a lack of focus in their own mental well-being. And then we have a vicious circle where they're kind of struggling to deal with those just daily challenges that come along and navigating those daily challenges. And a lot of corporates I work with will face challenges where parents then hit burnout and they're unable to kind of perform and deliver results. So, it's about getting parents back to space where they can find this perfect equilibrium, and that is their own perfect equilibrium, not anybody else's. And that's by knowing exactly what they want to achieve and what they want for themselves and what they want for their children.
I think that, like you say, that pressure of understanding that your normal is different to somebody else's normal.
Absolutely.
And again, you don't have to conform to a certain way of parenting. Like the way that
absolutely
you're going to do things is very, very different. Your job might be very, very different to someone that you've seen.
Absolutely.
Someone else that you've spoken to. I know my brother has said with his little girl, she's been sleeping through the night, but his friend, their little girl, isn't. Yeah. And it's, am I doing something wrong? Like, what am I doing that's making my child not sleep? I'm tired. Then, like you say, that rolls into work and it's, I'm tired, I'm stressed.
100%. It's that well-known phrase everybody talks about now, imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough because I've heard another mum say this about their child, and this is how and that could be how they're developing and thriving in their own personal, kind of in those baby and toddler years, or even that academic journey, how the pressure that comes along with academic success. I'd love to say it gets easier as your children need you less, but not necessarily. I myself have a 16 and 10-year-old now, and those needs are very, very different. But it's about bringing the values, your values as a parent. And I think sometimes that gets forgotten. So it's bringing them back to kind of your beliefs on how you would like to parent, how you want your children to kind of grow and thrive, and how you choose to nurture them, and coming back to that self-belief again. What's already within you? Because you're already, you're strong, you have your own capabilities. What are they? And how can you apply them? I used to joke about myself when I was in the corporate world, super organized, had a plan, everything was in my diary, everything was on a to-do list. But the thought of trying to use a to-do list at home just seemed wrong.
Sure.
It just seemed absolutely wrong. It's like, I do this all day long, I'm ticking off. But actually, when I realised where my challenges were and what was, where maybe I was struggling, the simplest chore, I'm calling it a chore because it's not much fun, but deciding on what to eat every night.
Right, yeah.
That was a chore. I've had a whole day at work, I've been to nursery, I've been to school, I've picked up the children, I've come home. Last thing I wanted to do was think about food, what was necessary, until I kind of realised, actually, if I turn this into a plan, and maybe a fun plan, this could be okay. So discovering a technique of meal planning was a game changer. So it was a plan, but it was a fun plan. It was a game changer in that I knew what I needed to prepare, when I needed to prepare it, how much time, some evenings would vary based on other responsibilities. And it just made such a difference, because it took away sort of 30 to 40 minutes of thinking, and then opening up the fridge and going, oh, actually I don't have the right items. So, it was just transferring something that was already within me, and a strength I already had, into how I could apply that at home and make my life easier. And it saved me tons of money, because it meant that my online grocery shop on a Monday was very specific. And that was buying the specific items. So it is about exploring what's already within you. What do you have? What have you used before that is transferable and can be used in your home life and other priorities that you have to juggle, as we say.
It's such an amazing thing to be able to look at the strengths, because I do think, like, when we talk about like crisis and struggle, and it's also negative, like all the language around it is so negative, and that can kind of feed into the difficulties.
Absolutely.
So like you say, looking at it from a strength perspective is really interesting.
Absolutely.
And so, like you say, so many people will already have that
tools within them
to be able to transfer it across.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you say about the need to think and taking that pressure away.
Yeah. It is. It's a moment of pause. It's kind of a moment of pause and reflection. And that, I don't think we do. We're in this fight and flight mode all the time. We're in a reactive mode all the time. Whether your child is being superb and angel child, or whether your child is probably having a really tough day, there is this whole kind of reaction. And if we, I talk to a lot of my clients about having a little pause button, almost like a remote control in your head. If you press that pause button for just a moment, actually your response could be completely different. Your response to your child and what they need, but also how it's going to make you feel. So you're trying to remove the stresses in your own world, but at the same time thinking about the impact or the consequence your next move is going to have on your child. And I think that's really, really critical. And how you define that is about how you kind of decide. It's almost like setting a goal. Going back to that world of that professional life, we set goals. We have business objectives, or we have work, and maybe we're running our own business objective, and we should do that in our personal lives. And that is by defining exactly what you want for yourself, defining what you want for your child. And once you know that, once you decide that actually it's really, really important that I can be the perfect role model for my child. So I decide and I choose that this is what discipline looks like, or this is what kind of the learning structure, and I don't mean academic learning, I mean like just normal life skills and attribute structure for my child. And you know that, and you visualize what impact that has on your child, and you can really sense the success that will bring. The next time you feel you need to reach to that pause button, you're going to remind yourself of that outcome you're looking to achieve. I read a quote once, and I think it was from Stephen Covey's book, and he was saying, you kind of choose to win, you're looking to win the war, not every battle. And if you find yourself kind of battling with every situation that you're dealing with, it just becomes this constant battle. Whereas if you're kind of looking to win the war, and this is what I see as how you define the outcome your children, what you want for your children. How do you want this relationship to build? What is the connection you want to have with your child? What is this perfect equilibrium for you? If it's kind of achieving peace and calm and serenity in the house, I know that's not something every day, but there's a sense of believing this is the outcome I'm looking for. It will help kind of how you kind of communicate with your child, and what sort of attributes and traits they pick up from you as a parent or their caregiver, because you're modeling exactly the behavior you're looking for. And it will remove your own internal stresses. It will remove your internal stresses. Being in reactive mode, again, it's that feeling of, I've just said something, I now feel bad about it, I feel guilty about it.
Yeah. And I do think there is a lot of pressure to be perfect.
Yeah.
And there are times, like you say, where if you have had a very, very stressful day at work, you've come home, something's happened, like it's, like you said, that pause button.
Yeah.
Just remember that you have that.
Yeah.
And I think, especially as well, if we're talking about sort of mental well-being as well, it's, if you are struggling, if you are having a stressful day, it's good to show that you're vulnerable yourself.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. So first and foremost, actually, I put self-care at the top of anybody's priority list. You know, it's kind of, if you're not looking after yourself, then how are you able to kind of look after everything else that's around you? And it's a metaphor I love. Some people don't love it, but I absolutely love it. But you hear it. What do they say on the plane? Put your oxygen mask on first before you help others. That's exactly it. If you cannot fuel your own emotions, your energy, and give yourself what you need to be able to deliver in all those other priorities, then actually it does become a struggle. Now, if that means there are those bad days, because they happen, it doesn't mean that you can't show emotion or you can't show that vulnerability. But what does mean that you've created your own little toolbox of needs. You've got the ideas that you know what's good for you. Ultimately know when there's a trigger, when there's a feeling that you know is not on that positive energy side, what do you need? Is that time out? Is that to walk away? Is that to go and have some time focusing on yourself, through a walk or through sort of exercise that works for you? Whatever it is, we're all different. We all have different needs. What do you need to almost refuel that energy? What's important to you? And that should be recognised by only yourself, but with also that whole, what is the impact going to be if I give myself a little bit of time and space? I think we feel this guilt again as parents. The guilt kicks in and go, well, I should be doing more with my child. I should be really focusing on what their needs are. It depends how you want to focus. Do you want to be okay, or do you want to be the best you possibly can? So it's about recognising what you need first and being able to go and find, rebuild your strength, refuel that energy, feel motivated enough to move forward and do what you need to do. And know that's okay. No, that's absolutely okay.
It's, again, I keep saying the word important, but it is so important, and people forget the basic fundamentals of looking after yourself sometimes. And there are so many options for people to get support. There's people can access coaching, there's the Health Assured, there's so many things out there. And I know we've talked about social media and how it can be, it can feed sometimes into some negativity, but there is there's a lot of knowledge and information that you can gain from it. Absolutely. Support networks, so many things out there.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I did want to speak to you about as well is, I know we've kind of single parents. I think there is that need for self-care and things like that, and that can be something that you can take time for when there's two of you.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I don't know how you feel about it from a single parent.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. As if it's shared, then you've got that immediate. Most people have an immediate partner to help to support. In that situation, a single parent, typically, not always, but typically is burdened with, well, firstly, financial pressures. They're doing it alone. They're having to juggle kind of earning that money, but also the childcare expenses, which we know are not cheap. It's not cheap, whether they're kind of at that newborn stage or even later in life. It is expensive. So firstly, they're kind of thinking, I've got to think about financially and the burden it causes. Then you've got that emotional piece. Almost I think it's a guilt feeling again. Could I have given more if there was two of us? Am I compensating because it's just me? So you're continuously giving and giving. And that can be really hard. And then it's that whole capacity to juggle all of those responsibilities in the same amount of time we all have in the day. So you're doing this single-handedly. You might be working, you might be employed, and therefore you're spinning all those plates again. You're spinning those plates where you're dropping your children off for childcare. You're going off and doing a day's work. You're rushing back and then doing all the necessary evening duties. And again, you're doing that single-handedly. You're going to crash on the sofa at the end of the day and think, whoa, I haven't had any time for myself. And probably no more time left in the day to think about that apart from try and get some sleep. So it can really, really affect emotionally, and that point of finding where you get your kind of energy for yourself. Where do you get that from? So I think it's really important in that you talked about the support structures, that there is a lot of support networks out there. How do you find the support network? Because that's, first of all, you're looking for your left hand or your right hand even, somebody to come along and be able to. So who's within your immediate support network? Who else is out there through your employers, through Health Assured, and what is available to you? And understand what can you really... Sometimes we're reluctant because we're trying really hard to be the hero and do it on our own. But you need to know that that's not necessary. You know what? That nobody actually is judging you because you're not doing this, by yourself and single-handedly. I think there are lots of ways around flexible working and negotiating with the employer. And I try and work with a lot of employers to kind of see the new way of life that exists now. The flexible, this single parent probably feels they have to work. There is probably no choice. They are the only one bringing the money in. Maybe they feel they can't progress their career because they've got to prioritize their children. And I truly believe there is a way around that. I think there's a huge way around. Still continue to nurture your professional growth and still give your child what you need, and that could be through communication with your employer. That is using the tools. There's some element of how can you use that to your advantage? How could you interact with your children or engage your children in activities that almost give you that fulfillment as well?
Sure.
So yes, difficult with baby in arms and toddler, but they soon get to a point where they always want to be that helpful child. So it is hard, but there are possibilities, and it's about digging deep and exploring those possibilities. What do you have within you? What can you do? Don't be afraid to take time out, getting your children to join classes, but don't feel that you have to sit and watch every class. Go and use that time to go and have a coffee and be ready for whatever the rest of the weekend brings. And sometimes you can label yourself as the mum chauffeur, the dad chauffeur, running around all weekend doing what all these extracurricular activities, which is an additional pressure we feel as parents now. But actually, how can you turn that into something that is beneficial for yourself? And you can build a network through the other parents that attend. You can go and have a quiet coffee. There are just ways to be a bit more creative and find what is good for you, what would be good for you, and what would help that rest of the day and the weekend and surviving that whole weekend.
Do you know what? It's sometimes just such a little thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you say, you've been there, you've gone and taken your child to whatever it is at the weekend. Like you say, go and use that time.
Absolutely.
I think it's as well understanding that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to need that time.
Give yourself permission, 100%. Give yourself permission when you know how good it is for you, how beneficial it is for you, and not forgetting it's actually having a positive impact on those around you. That's important to remember. Sometimes ask yourself that question: what do I need? How is it going to help me? But how is it going to help the others around me? And then you'll get to a point of realizing that that I am going off and doing something by myself, that's not selfish. Actually, it's absolutely for the benefit of everyone. And sometimes we go back to, again, our values and who we are. There could be this whole impact of how we were raised, how our parents did something, and what's kind of then I suppose we're trying to kind of translate into life today. And that is the important message. Life today is not as it was once upon a time. The parental kind of responsibility, very, very different. They did a great job, of course they did, but in the circumstances that were there. So those values may be carried forward from how you were raised as a child. And sometimes you've got to question them, like, does that still apply to me in my role as a parent? And I give you an example. I remember coaching a mum once just on her career growth and how she had very little time for herself. And as we explored, the discovery was really simple. The discovery was that weekends, when she was growing up, was all about housework. It was about vacuuming the house and doing all the house chores, and there wasn't very much else going on. Didn't have those extracurricular activities for the children. In her life today, as a mum, her Saturday does involve driving one child to ballet, one child to dance, one child to various different other activities. And therefore that need to come home and think, oh, I still have to clean the house, is actually just putting added pressure. So it's about looking at what is in your life right now, what is your structure of your life, and what can you manage. So yeah, having a clean house is obviously important. Having happy children is very, very important. Okay, but how can you find, again, the perfect solution that both can happen without you taking on the pressure? So it's very, very simple sometimes. It's looking back at what's kind of carried on from your childhood that's not so relevant to today.
My parents, I remember when I was younger, it was very, very similar. It was always at the weekend, we were at home, we were doing bits to help, and things like that. But it's so funny when you think about it, because it is. I do think that obviously, like you say, it can be really, really difficult, and there are times where you are going to be very tired. You are going to feel stressed.
Absolutely.
But it's about removing as much of
it is
that stress and pressure as possible.
Yeah.
And just, like you say, it's the balance.
It is the balance.
Which I know in hindsight is easy to sit here and say.
And it's the unexpected is going to happen. You cannot, children are so unpredictable. And, I remember the days of the dreaded phone call, flashing up that nursery's calling or school's calling. And it was that whole kind of moment of dilemma. Oh, I've got a really important meeting I'm just preparing for, I need to go into. My child is sick. You need to come and get your child. It's a horrible feeling. And most parents or carers have to go through this feeling of choosing. And we shouldn't be in that position. We should trust ourselves, particularly in our professional lives. And I think sometimes that's where things drop off. We don't trust ourselves that we have the same ability we had before we became parents. We have the same competencies. We're always going to perform our best, deliver the results. And sometimes we fail to trust that. So it's okay to let go, because actually your child is unwell and needs you and needs that attention. Of course, there's lots that can be done with communicating with your employer and having that agreement put in place. And I think that's really important, particularly for new parents going back into work after maternity or paternity, being able to walk in there and sort of go, okay, yeah, my life has changed, but I'm still the same person. I still have those responsibilities. I think that's really, really important. But it's being able to do that without that feeling of guilt or feeling this conflict in your head all the time, that you're able to do both and do both successfully.
Like I said, I know I said it at the start, I'm not a parent, but I'm learning so much. It's honestly, it's so good though, because I do think that there is so much you need to be able to master this, you need to be able to master that, you need to be perfect at your job still, like you need to be a perfect parent, you need children that can speak 5 languages at the age of 3. Like it's just so interesting to listen to your perspective and understand that you don't have to be.
No, you have to be your own best version of yourself. That's that message. It's very much about find who you are. What does the best mean to you? Not perfect, because there will be days. There are ideas and tools that will help you make those not so perfect days a little bit easier, and you can find those. And you can find those by the simple things of switching into a proactive mode. And I do say this all the time, actually taking a little bit of time, whether it's a Sunday night before the week ahead, on, okay, what's coming up? Okay, I've got to be at sports day. This time of year is awful for parents, I know, because it's, it's end of term sports day. It's those music concerts. It's it's juggling, a bit like that Christmas period. It's juggling all those places you need to be, and you want to be, of course.
Of course.
But around probably a very full and packed, demanding diary too. But it's about standing back and going, okay, you know what? Both are important to me. Both are a priority. And how can I be proactive? So what do they say? It's you should really be looking to schedule your priorities rather than prioritize your schedule. And so by that is being able to sort of say, I know I'm in control of all of these elements of the following week. How can I make that, put that plan together and be aware that, yes, I do need to be on the sports field between this time and this time, which means I'm unavailable to take work calls. But actually for the rest of the day or the following day, I will be available to complete the tasks. And it works. It does work, because what you're doing is creating awareness on what's coming up. You're trying to be as proactive as you can, with also allowing yourself some time to breathe. That moment to say, okay, I've got a busy ahead. I mean, we all do it. How's your week? Busy. And we've kind of gone into this mindset of, we've already decided it's going to be busy without actually saying what's going on. And it's a natural response. We all have that reaction. But if you turned it around, and even, we can talk about mindset in a minute, but turn it around into something that you're more in control of, and you feel you're in control of. You have the perfect day. You've gone to sports day. You've cheered your child on, even if they've come last. If you've done that bit, but you've enjoyed a moment that isn't always going to be there. You still managed to get into work. You've still managed to fulfill the meeting, and you just feel like you've achieved exactly what you set out to achieve. And not forgetting, you've got that perfect meal plan, so your evenings are running really smoothly, and before you know it, you've got all this time to sit back and just enjoy some time for yourself, your time with partner if you have a partner, and things that are good for you. So I think it is about changing how you do things without having to be that perfectionist.
That brings me on to something again that I definitely wanted to speak to you about, and what I think would be really important for anyone watching this is how would you recommend to someone, or what would you advise someone who is going to be going through like a fairly stressful period, if they know that they are going to have some time coming up where it is going to be really, really full on, and it is going to be a kind of crisis point essentially? Is there any things that you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned mindset. I think first of all, it's kind of being able to say to yourself that this is how I want the next few weeks to go, based on this is how I want to feel. So there's a lot of talk out there right now about growth mindset, fixed mindset, positive mindset, resilient mindset. So it's about actually being in that frame of as positive as you can be, but also giving yourself permission that things will be busy and things will be hectic. And if you've already allowed yourself that permission. So in that positive mindset, it is acknowledging that things are going to be busy, that things are going to be a juggle. But there's a message that I really love to share, and I've completely stolen this from somebody who said it to me, and I can't remember who it was. So I'm borrowing it. But we're spinning all these plates, but remember the plates are plastic. So the important message there is, yeah, you may be taking on more than you usually would take on, and you may get to a point where you're stretched more than you are stretched, and you may get to a point where there probably is very, very little time for that self-care that you need. But ultimately, if anything, if the plate drops, it's not going to break. It's not going to break. You can maybe take some really good lessons from it all and kind of use it as a way of understanding yourself even more. How did I deal with that challenging situation? How did I overcome it? Because you will survive it, you will succeed. There'll be challenges and obstacles and hurdles. Well, try and take some time to reflect on how you did that, because that's only ever going to support your toolkit. That's only ever going to give you greater belief that these things can happen, and actually I can get over it, and this is how. So when you need it again, you can reach deep into that pocket and say, okay, I'm going to use what I'm aware of. I'm going to use what worked really well for me the next time round. And I think that's important, is absolutely when you're in that reactive mode, you may forget, but you will build on it if you just take that time at the end of that period and go, okay, you know what? I got through it. How did I get through it? And often when I'm working on a one-on-one coaching sort of relationship with a client who is looking for these strategies, it's because they're aspirational. They want to be in a really positive position. They want to be focusing on their professional growth, their parenting role. It's about getting them to understand kind of their experiences and what is happening and what is working well for them, and also where they aspire to be at the end of that period. And once you know that, once you identify that, and you've got a clear idea of where you want to be, it's much easier. It's much easier to adopt some of those tools and strategies to get you there.
It's really interesting that you said about the using it as like a learning tool. Yeah. So popping it in your toolbox, you've got that to come back to. And I think, again, you mentioned before about there being things that will happen.
Yeah.
And there will be things that happen randomly that you can't plan for, that you can't prepare for. But it is a learning...
Absolutely, yeah.
...opportunity.
It's always a learning opportunity. It's always, if you take time, sort of take stock of what's happening. People talk about journaling, and I truly believe in it because it's a way of capturing kind of how things have happened. What did happen? What won't I do again next week? What will I try differently? And you don't have to do that through a written, but there isn't having a moment to yourself to really think about it. How did I get through that really, really busy day? How did I get through that busy, busy week? What worked for me? What didn't work for me? How did we work as a unit? If there are other members in your family, if you know there are people that do regularly support you, who are they? Who's always there? Sometimes we kind of forget, I could call upon, whoever it might be. So who's it? There's a who in your toolkit too. Who are they? What are they? If you're great at meditation maybe, or you're great at yoga, these are resources. What resources do I have? So it is about building and constantly building, and saying to yourself, it's okay because I cannot be in control of everything. I might be able to influence it, but I will only be able to control parts of it. Time is a big thing. We can't change time. It's the same 24 hours in the day. As much as sometimes we'd love to go, give me a few more hours. We don't have that ability. But what we do have is the ability to say, okay, I've got that amount of time to do this and this. How am I going to make sure? And sometimes it's about removing things that are not necessary in our lives and giving ourselves permission to sort of go, I'm going to let that go. I'm not forgetting you, but I'm going to let that go today because I need to focus on this, and that's more important. And it does take a moment, but that moment is so powerful, and it does pay dividends at the end of it. So again, back to the pause, back to the stop, back to the, I know what it's like. You rush off, you do the school run in the morning, sometimes 1 or 2 drops on, you rush back, you're stuck in traffic, you come back, you're meant to be logged on, ready for that 8:30, 9 o'clock meeting. Okay, but 10 minutes is all it takes just to kind of work out, kind of what do I need today? What do I need to get through and what is important? So short amount of time, pause, give yourself that space to do so.
No, I think it's really true, and it's just taking that 5-10 minutes. It doesn't need to be a day. It doesn't need to be an hour. It's whatever you need just to kind of focus yourself and your time.
Yeah. So an evaluation. Here we go on kind of what do you need? This is about understanding what do you like doing. Sometimes I use a visualization exercise. We go on holiday, which is our time to, that's our downtime. We know that happens. We know we go away and we're on holiday. That's our time to relax. That's our time to be, ourselves, and no work, no laundry, no housework. Okay, we've kind of got a method there because it's about going on. That's not possible. It's not possible 7 days of the week to have kind of that kind of replicate that feeling of sitting on a beach or in a lounger or having a dip in the pool. But you can, in some ways, understand by understanding the feeling you get when you are sat on a beach and you are sitting in a lounger. What is that feeling you get? What is that sensation? And then try and translate that into what your needs are on a weekly basis, daily basis. So if it's that feeling of calm, a little bit of peace, a bit of time near water, all those things, identify what they are. What are they that works for you? And look at your schedule and see how you can make that work. Is this whole feeling of being in the house, having a responsibility, having a duty, and that those things can't happen? I mean, we even forget those little things, that how good it feels to read a book, how good it feels to maybe just potter around the garden, how, we're in a world now, because there's no boundaries between, when you work from home, it doesn't seem to be those clear boundaries now when work ends and when the evening starts. Sometimes it's blurred. People have got into this idea of FOSO, I think they call it, fear of switching off. Okay. Because your laptop's in the room next door, the kitchen is where you're cooking dinner, and this whole feeling of I need to go and check my laptop in case somebody's responded to me, or quickly check my diary for tomorrow. So it's about being able to go, okay, no, this is a boundary I create for myself, and this is what I need. So understand your needs, understand that feeling of good when you are looking after yourself and when you do feel good, and see how you can translate that. If it means leaving the house for 10 minutes to walk around the garden, just to kind of set that kind of boundary from the busyness of the day and what you need to deal with, then absolutely try and find what that is.
It's amazing. And I think, like you say, it doesn't have to be some grand master plan.
Absolutely.
It's 10 minutes.
It is. And it's making it habit. In the same way, the consistency is important. The same we automatically get up, we shower, we brush our teeth, pop downstairs, we pop the kettle on. That's something I think most of us will do, that morning routine we do with, without even thinking about it. It's the same kind of principle, like making this thing that you need for yourself that will just give you the good start to the day or the perfect end to the day, and just making it a habit. But don't flick into it overnight. Do it as a gradual step. Because with everything that you try and have, you try and have this master plan of, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just lose weight. But we haven't really created the steps towards getting there. So it's about breaking it down into the next possible step. And saying, okay, this week, for 3 days, this week, this is what I plan to do. And then gradually build it up to a point where it becomes a habit and it's routine. You're doing it without thinking. And then you'll really reap the rewards because it's something that just becomes part of you, becomes part of your routine. And then associate how good it's going to feel when you have that part of your routine. Always get to a point where you're saying to yourself, once I have this, the benefits for me are this, the benefits for everybody around me are this. And it will really drive the belief on how you need to really execute it.
Small and steady. Build it up.
Absolutely, stepping stones. Yeah, absolutely. Take those small stepping stones. It's so empowering as well, because when you do it one day, you think, go me, I've done it. And then you do it again, and it just empowers you to keep trying at it. So the first step is critical, but then it just gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier, and then it just becomes part of life.
Honestly, like, I'm learning so much. It's so interesting. Like, honestly, I don't even have children, but it's great. Like, but I think as well, like, one of the things is, whilst, like I say, it's not something at this moment in time that I'm thinking about from like a parent perspective, there's so many things that I'm sure people that are watching this that might not be parents just yet either will take from it. And I think, like you say, it's so important to build things up slowly, understand what's important to you.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you would recommend that's a good way to start?
Absolutely. I mean, the perfect starting point is to define who you are. It's absolutely to define, you know, whether you're kind of thinking about starting this journey of, you know, building a family, or you're already in that position where you have started a family, or you're growing your family. There is this element of your identity becomes kind of lower down in the pecking order. You kind of start to forget who you are and who you were. So it is about kind of going back to identifying who you are, the kind of person you are, the kind of person you always have been, and what's within you, and not forgetting that. And then it's about defining what you want in your role as a parent and what you want for your child. Now, it's really, really important to remember that it is what you want for your child, but remembering that they're going to, probably from the day they can start being interactive, they're going to have their own choices as well. And there's very little you can control, but you want to kind of define that role as a parent and how you're going to be this perfect role model. So it sounds like you need to be there mind mapping this plan. It's not about that at all. It's actually just recognizing yourself and having the right aspirations. So simply put, if you want to, you know, you're looking at building, and this can apply to any partnership, any connection, any relationship you're building, you're looking to build a relationship with your child where they are thriving, they're confident, you're feeling that connection. Well, what does that look like? You know, a lot of parents kind of fall back to this whole, it's about being academically, you know, successful. Yeah. That's kind of immediate. Well, I want them to be smart and intelligent and succeed academically. There is more to that. It's about allowing them to, or celebrating even, when mistakes happen, and knowing how you can transfer that mistake to a lesson in life. You know, a simple spill of a glass of milk, what does that mean? You know, does that mean that we yell and we tell them off and end of story? Or is there an element of teaching kind of care or being careful, and how you translate that? Because which one will have the longer lasting positive effect? So kind of it's about defining at all elements where you are. What do you need? What do you want? What does it look like? What is ideal for you? And you will be influenced by lots of external factors. There is going to be this, I quite like how she does that, or I quite like how he does that. But actually then bringing it back to who you are and who, you know, the values that are deep rooted within you and who you want to be. So it's not a difficult task. It is about, it's just an exercise of looking within and finding where you've had some great experiences. So very simply put, is you might say, I just want to be happy. I just want to have happy family, which is a really lovely kind of aspiration. But happy to me, happy to you are very, very different. So what does happy actually mean? Well, how will you know that your child is happy? How will you know you're happy? What is that feeling? And I encourage when I have this in a coaching conversation, they say, yeah, my goal, just to be happy. Great. Okay, what does happy mean? I encourage people to kind of tell me about a time where that sensation, you know, brings back that feeling of happiness again. Tell me about a time when you were happy. What was happening? And then really brings out kind of that definition. So you're also defining, you know, what some of these values mean to you, and not what it means, you know, to anyone else, but what does it mean to you? What does confident child mean? What do we mean when we say, I want my child to be confident? And we have to translate that into something a little bit more tangible. Well, when they're confident, you know, they won't be running to me, they'll have greater independence. Or when they're confident, they'll be tying their shoelace, you know, without the need. You know? So it's really defining what that means to you, and not kind of what the textbook says. And I really do encourage that. It is worth the time. And your communication with the other person that may be involved in this role of caregiving, or, you know, your partner who is taking on shared parental responsibility, if you have that communication between the two of you, is key. It's key not only sharing kind of your purpose and sharing your aspirations that you have in that parenting role, but also there's times you need that time out. You know, it's ultimately being able to say to each other, okay, I needed a bit of rest today, or I need a little moment to myself, because working in partnership is really, really, really key. If you're in that position and you're a single parent raising your child, it's the same principle in terms of understanding what your needs are. If you need that hour before bedtime, or you need that hour before they wake up, then give yourself that moment for you, that you're doing everything that is for you and what your needs are. And that's really, really critical, that you can recognize it and be able to put in place a strategy. It sounds very corporate, but essentially we should be strategizing our self-care. We should be strategizing our well-being, because we want to feel good. We want to be good. We want to be the best we can be. And we want to find whatever perfect equilibrium looks like in your own space.
No, it's really helpful, and I think the main things that I've kind of taken from this, and I hope everyone else has as well, is prioritizing yourself and making sure that your cup is full.
Yes, 100%.
And just really, if, like you say, if you're not your best self,
yeah,
you need to give yourself that time. And again, it's completely fine to have those moments, and there is support out there. You said,
yeah, totally, absolutely. You're absolutely right. It is, give yourself that time and support. Know what you need, and also know that there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
It's not selfish. You shouldn't be feeling guilty, because the ultimate aim is to be the best you can for your family.
No, that's absolutely amazing, and thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about something I'm so passionate about.
It's been really, really wonderful. And like I say, I've learned a lot. I hope anyone that's watching has learned a lot, and it's honestly been an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.